one of the things that we have wanted to do is, again, to help find people who want to support this kind of work. And following the development of the protocol, we wanted to find ways to help people and to help churches stay United Methodist, because our annual conference is one of those conferences that could be threatened with, depending on what passes at some general conference when we have one in 2048. Depending on what passes, our annual conference might be one that would choose to leave en masse if that was an option that was provided. So we were wanting to find ways that we could help people in churches stay United Methodist. So one of the things that we have done over the course of several years is indeed go to various localities in the annual conference. This is an initiative we're still doing, trying to find, as Helen Ride has said in the past, find the people who think inclusive thoughts and get them together. So we have a group in the Wiregrass and the Dothan area, the Auburn-Opelika area. We have a group in the Montgomery-Prattville area, and we're working on establishing groups in other areas as well. So after the development of the protocol, there were a lot of questions in our own mind about how to help people hear the story. We felt like there was a lot of information and, frankly, not a little bit of misinformation from other groups across the spectrum of United Methodist life. And we wanted to create a resource where people who were curious or were certainly wanting to support staying United Methodist to understand several things: yesterday, today, and tomorrow. How did we get where we are? Where are we, in fact, today? And what are the potential options for the future? So we created a 4-session study, and we had already hosted several events, worship events, and other kinds of studies via Zoom during COVID tide. And we had a great success with that. Lots of people coming and joining in on that. So we already had kind of a platform where people would trust the product, trust our brand, and know that what we were bringing to the table was quality work. So we just simply decided to host this study. And the study unfolds in 4 sessions. One is about a 28-minute video about the history of the United Methodist Church from a particular point of view. It's the history of inclusion in United Methodism in North America. How over time the church has tended to become more inclusive of people, and to just tell that story over the course of 28 minutes. Then the United Methodist Church Today was done by Dr. John Dew, and John told the story from about 1968, from the moment of union to the present. And then the 3rd session was done by Lindsay Middleton, and Lindsay took a good long look at the proposed Global Methodist Church and did quite a bit of comparison in the materials that they had already provided by the time we did the study, which was back in May, and who we are as United Methodists. And then the 4th session was a set of future possibilities that was led by Pat Luna, and Pat unfolded in her always generous way, a set of personal reflections, but then also describing in detail what some of the options are for the future, and really what are some practical steps that an individual or a group in a church might take in order to be visible as people who want to stay United Methodist, what could people do in order to help people stay United Methodist on their local level. Let me flip over for a minute just to show you the the resource itself. This is the resource. This is a PDF, and each session, so each session unfolds in a similar way. First off, let me make a statement here, and that is, we wanted to be really clear about who we are as United Methodists. I don't know if you can see that very well. Let me raise the level of text up a bit. We wanted to be very clear about what our particular stance was in relation to some of the ideas we were going to talk about, so that people would have no, they would have every way to understand the perspective that we were bringing to the table. Each session unfolds. When we did the session initially, it was just the videos. But what we wanted to do was create a resource that people could use in a small group that was very kind of plug and play. They could use which modules they felt like would be helpful to them. But we really wanted to cast it in terms of worshipful work. So each session has an opening prayer. We include a hymn for each section with a link to a performance of that hymn on YouTube, so that if a leader or if an individual was doing this for themselves, they could sing along. There's a scripture reading. We had 4 readings from Ephesians, 1 for each session. We also included poll questions, some of which were silly, some of which were serious, but it was kind of a way to break some ice. And those poll questions are included in a separate leader guide that we have also produced. And then there are links to the video presentations for each one of the sessions. Those are hosted on a YouTube channel, and we have a playlist of all of the videos there, which you can find if you go to YouTube and just search AWF RMN, you'll find us. And then each section has several questions for discussion and reflection. And then following that, there's a closing prayer for each section too. So people could take this and they could modify it however they saw fit to use the resource. This resource is, as I'm sure Pat will tell you in a bit, this resource is available through a PDF download, or you can get a lovely bound copy from Amazon for $10. I wanted to take a moment to play just a couple of about 2.5 minute segment of the session that I did for the study. This is called an impulse to include, and this section comes from this is sort of the summary, and it'll give you a sense of how this flows. Hold on a moment.
Here are 4 ways in which Methodism has grown in its definitions of who can participate, who can lead, who can preach and perform the sacraments, and who can marry and be married. We could also easily include Native Americans and Hispanic people and many others in our inclusion roll call. And most of the time, the opponents of inclusion have used Scripture as the basis of their arguments, and time and again, the interpretation of Scripture simply changed by some combination of the force of war, the force of logic, or the force of culture. But one thing has not changed at all. None, not a whit. Our doctrine has not changed. The restrictive rules of our church in the Constitution have stood long years of time, protecting our doctrinal standards. Our beliefs about God and Jesus Christ and the state of humanity and the scripture way of salvation, none of these have been in the least altered or affected by including more people. For nearly 200 years, the opponents of inclusion have promised that laity or women or black people, divorced people, and others would be like doctrinal Trojan horses that would at best water down our faith or at worst rip our faith from its biblical, theological, Methodist hinges. But they are wrong. The creeds are all still there. The essentials of the faith that we share with others in Christendom, all still there. And those beliefs that distinguish us as Methodist Christians, grace upon grace, the need for holiness of heart and life, heartwarming experiences of salvation, and the practice of spiritual disciplines, all still there for us, in us. Whether we are lay or clergy, no matter our gender identity or expression, regardless of our skin color or our marital status or the person that we love. The true way, the scriptural way, the Methodist way is still our way.
Yes, how many months have we been doing this and we still forget to unmute ourselves? That was to make all of you feel better about that. I hope everybody could hear that okay. That in a nutshell is what we have unfolded. I do want to say that that following the production of the study, we have had others that have taken this study into their local church and have worked with it and helped us develop this better and gave us lots of good feedback about it. But we still want feedback, right? We still need your help because, this is a resource because it's a PDF. We can change it at any moment. If you take this resource and you use it in your local church, then be sure to give us feedback so that we know how best to use it. One of the people, first of all, I want to just ask Pat real quickly. Pat, did I hit what needed to be hit before I reintroduce Kathy?
I'm so proud of you.
I love you too. In summary, this is a study that's born out of love. If it's born out of love for each other in this group, our love for the United Methodist Church, and our wholehearted desire that people want to stay United Methodist. All right, so one of the lovely, beautiful people that has helped us, along the way, and that was able to be a participant in the study the first time we did it, is Kathy Gavin. And Kathy, because of her participation in a variety of things on the annual conference level, particularly around anti-racism, really has been a valuable asset to us. And so, Kathy, I turn to you and ask that, can you share with us your experience of what it was like to be a part of this?
Thank you, Sam, and good evening to everyone. And again, I am Kathy Gavin from the lovely town of Eclectic. I will be speaking with you regarding my reflections as a lay person and as a member of the Coalition for Dismantling Racism. Just like you, I've had questions, and we all have questions. And we say, how did we get here? But in actuality, it's why are we still here? There's an elephant in the room. The elephant has fed on our fears, misunderstandings, anxieties, hurts, pains, us and them, isms, protocol, no protocol, general conference, no general conference. So it's been feeding off of us a long time, and it is extremely full. And as I was watching this study, a friend of mine asked me, well, told me about this study. I like to be informed. And if you want to be informed and get an objective and very informative study, then this is for you. It's not something that's trying to pull you or persuade you one way or the other, but simply provide you with accurate, good information. And I looked at it, like I said, I am on the Coalition for Dismantling Racism. And so much of it, I saw some similarities, change out the name if you say, but you know, I looked, and it was in 1966 when the General Conference and every other annual conference had to approve the plan of the Union for the general churches to merge the white Methodist, the Evangelical United Brethren, and the Central Jurisdiction Conference into a single annual conference. And all churches and pastors were supposedly to be on equal footing. They were mandated to do so before the 1972 General Conference. Well, our Alabama West Florida Conference established a committee to write a resolution for the elimination of racial structure. And when this resolution was presented in 1967, along with the conference plan of the Union, this plan of the Union narrowly passed. But the resolution for elimination of racial structure was soundly defeated. The resolution was presented every year thereafter from 1968 until 1971 without passing. The Alabama West Florida Conference voted to end segregation when it absolutely had to. And that was on May 31st of 1972. And it was passed by a vote of 393 for and 182 against. And noted, it was when we absolutely had to. And are we finding ourselves in a position again as to where we absolutely have to? June 8th of 2020, there was a message from the Council of Bishops, and it was entitled, Bishops Call on Churches to Act to End Racism. July 1st of 2020, Bishop Graves forms the Coalition for Dismantling Racism, with the goal of having conversations around racism that will provide guidance to our local churches, congregations, and communities on the next steps for the Alabama West Florida Conference. Today, September the 12th of 2021, there are still churches that will not accept a Black pastor or a female pastor into their churches. There is an elephant in the room, and it's time for us to turn the tables and to use our utensils of love, patience, understanding, and information to begin to eat this elephant one bite at a time. So if you're ready to start eating the elephant, yesterday, today, and tomorrow is a very good source of information for you to begin with. Pat, I will turn it over to you.
Wow. Thank you, Kathy. What a beautiful testimony. Uh, Obviously, we were so thrilled to have Kathy with us as a participant on the study and to bring the depth and breadth that she brought to our study. And so we are just so thankful for you. So thank you again for that beautiful testimony, Kathy. Well, after we completed the study last spring, we immediately began to get requests from people in our conference and other conferences to offer the study again and to develop a study guide for participants. So our Alabama West Florida Ministries team, and we have about 10 of us that are the core team, and we meet every single week. And it has become the most special covenant group and support group. And as you can tell from Kathy's testimony, how badly we need that. It is a difficult conference to be in intersectionally in every single category. But it gave us a wonderful thing to focus on and to work on to help our conference and other conferences to be able to use the study. And so what we are going to be sharing with you, and Sam has hit on a lot of it, but I want to reinforce it, are all the resources and offerings our team put together. So if you would like more information, I already put this in the chat, but just to make sure that you hear it, if you would like more information on any of these resources, simply go to our website, which is awfreconciling.com. Super easy to remember, awfreconciling.com. Well, the first thing, as Sam has already showed you a little bit of, is we now have our very own YouTube station where all four of the videos, and Sam's video on inclusion has one for both Alabama, West Florida, and for any conference. So you can pick one of the two on that one, but then the other three are the same. And so you have a video for every study, all 4 weeks, and they're available for free. And we do hope you'll take advantage of these. We have worked hard on them and tried very hard to have the kind of integrity and the kind of honesty and to be non-dualistic and to really offer to the connection something that's worthwhile. The videos range in length from less than 20 minutes to a little over 28 minutes. You may use these videos for individual study, small group study, or any way you think they may be helpful. They are yours to use. Now, if you're using your videos for small group, I just have to mention that some of our small group leaders have asked participants to watch the videos beforehand so that class time could be spent entirely on discussing the content, because there's so much that people want to unpack. While others do prefer to watch the session together and then respond. Either way, the videos are available for your use however you want to use them. Of course, you can also decide whether you want to use all of the sessions or just one or two that address your local context and needs. It's all up to you, friends. Amazingly, even though we made the videos a few months, not very long, but a few months ago, they haven't needed to be updated because, as we all know, we're in this stagnant period where not much is happening, and that's kind of good and kind of terrible. Anyway, they're still very accurate and up to date. The second thing that we have is our Alabama West Florida Reconciling Ministry team developed a helpful participant guide. Now, you can download the workbook, and this is what it looks like if you download it. I bet you've done that before. And that's free, absolutely free. But wait, there's more. Or you can also get it on Amazon. If you're like, so I know so many people after working with United Methodist churches that have a whole bookshelf of all the studies they've done, and this does not fit very well on a bookshelf. So yes, we have even accommodated your bookshelf needs. So you can buy this handy dandy book on Amazon for the bonus price of $10. I do need to disclose that we're making 63 cents on each one. So, just don't want to be completely transparent. But yes, friends, you can get this on Amazon if you would prefer a bound book. Now, the workbook can be used for individual study, or it can be used as a guide for small group participants, any way you want to. It includes, as Sam showed you, questions for reflection and discussion, scripture references, opening and closing prayers, really everything you would need to maximize and make it as easy as possible for you to lead those discussions. We've even included, as Sam said, suggested hymns with links so you know how the tune goes if you'd like to use them. So we've tried to make it as easy and as accessible as it can be. We also have developed a handy dandy leader's guide. Now, if you want a bound book, this is not available on Amazon, but it is free. And so this leader's guide provides suggested answers to questions, links to the primary resources and other tools for small group leaders so you don't ever feel unprepared. Lastly, yes, we will be offering the United Methodist Church Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow again in October. There's 4 Thursdays in October, and everyone is welcome. So every Thursday in October this year, from 7 to 8 Central Time, 7 to 8 Central Time in October, you are so welcome to join us on Thursdays for our 4 lessons. And so I hope you will do that. If you haven't, or if you have, all are welcome. Now, after each of these classes in October, we'll also be staying on for another 30 minutes to resource anyone who's interested in teaching the study, to answer your questions, to provide tips and ideas for what has worked for us, and to empower and encourage you to teach this important material. As Sam has said, there is so much misinformation out there. The narrative that is being offered by the other church is just not helpful, nor often truthful. And so something needed to be out there. And currently, we are not seeing much, if anything, that tells a truer narrative of the situation that the United Methodist Church is currently in. You know, originally, we were only creating this study to help connect those of us in Alabama, West Florida, and our somewhat desolate environment who want to stay United Methodist, because we do. The United Methodist Church is not perfect, but the members of this team still choose to stay in our denomination. But we are hoping and dreaming for, oh, please God, a day when we are more diverse, a day where we are more inclusive, a day where we are more just, and a day where equity is not just a word, but a reality for our denomination. We are so thrilled that the efforts that we have done have already helped United Methodist from the Congo. We were so happy when somebody from the Congo showed up. We didn't even advertise it to the connection, but he found us, and we were grateful. To West Texas, West Texas, wow. And we hope it might be helpful to you as well. And we even had some people from Eclectic, Alabama to come. So there you go. These are difficult times. These are, and we all need to acknowledge these are difficult times in so many ways. And it's so unfortunate that on top of our societal multitude of problems and pains and just all we're struggling with, that our denomination is also in that time. And so know that the Alabama West Florida Reconciling Ministries team is here to help you. And we are so happy to provide this resource and to help you in being able to offer it in your particular areas to help you. We're here for you. Well, Emily and Ophelia and Jan, we sure do appreciate the support of Reconciling Ministries. We would be nowhere had Helen Ride not showed up, relentlessly talking to all kinds of people, including all of us, and inviting us to be part of Reconciling Ministries. And so we are so thankful. And we are specifically thankful for this virtual porch tonight. We hope it's been insightful and that you might perhaps use it. We think it's something valuable. So Ophelia, thank you all so much.
Sam, Kathy, thank you all so much for giving up your time and also this incredible effort that we have been hearing about. We've got a few questions so far, and I would love to hear additional questions from y'all. You can either send them to us in the chat. You can send it to me privately if you don't want it to be a question that's got your name affixed to it. I'm happy to read any of them anonymously. But yes, our appetites are whetted, and we've got a few questions for you all. So Pat, Kathy, and Sam, I'll let you all decide like who wants to take which question, and we'll just get started on this. So my first question for you all is, do I need to ask, if I were a congregant, do I need to ask my pastor in order to offer the study, either as a small group at my church or with the church corporately? So what if my pastor or my church is currently affiliated with WCA? How would you go about figuring out how to offer the study in a landscape like that?
All right, Pat.
Well, that is such an easy question to warm us up with. Obviously, I think it's important, whether they agree or not, that you at least inform your pastor that you plan on offering this study. Whether they agree or not, they should at least give you the right to offer it in your home, or, you know, they ought to offer it in your church because it's your church too. But at the very least, you could offer it in your home on Zoom. That's one of the great conveniences and opportunities we have because of Zoom that we wouldn't have had before, where we had to have a classroom. But you need to at least inform that person. And you know, obviously we know, we've had people call us in our conference and in other conferences saying, our church is WCA. They have told us we're not welcome, but it's our church. We want to stay. And so this might help you, as it has helped us, to connect with people in the church that maybe would not know that you want to stay United Methodist too, and that you hope for a more inclusive and just future. So I saw several nods. I'm encouraged because the pastors I know on the screen nodded affirmatively. So I'm assuming that was that passes the pastor test. And so there we go.
So, Pat, this is Lynn Nesbitt. Could I add something to that?
Sure. And Lynn is a pastor, y'all.
I'm a pastor. I think you absolutely ought to inform your pastor. If I were doing it, this is how I would do it. So I'm really interested in this study. I'd like to offer it on Tuesday mornings at 10 o'clock. I would have something concrete. If you're not welcomed with that, I wouldn't wait for permission to have it on Zoom or in my house. You don't need their permission. You have gone to them in a mind of openness. And if they say, we're absolutely not having this in the church, you can say, okay, I'll do it in my house, and not be confrontational. But when you mentioned welcome you to have it in your home, I wouldn't need their welcome to do that. I'd want to be courteous about it, but I don't need anybody's permission.
Well, right on. And so Lynn, we'd be glad to start having you join us on Mondays because we love your spirit, and absolutely, you know, we are all part of our churches, and you know, just remind you that the pastors are actually not members of your churches. You are. And so, you know, we don't want to undermine our pastors, but at the same time, we don't need to have their permission. However, it is polite to at least inform them. But I love the having a concrete, we're going to offer it here, there, and at this time. That's a great plan, Lynn. And I'll be sending you that link for Monday mornings.
Pat, I did want to say that I believe that our webpage says that study is going to be at 6:30 on Thursdays in October. So okay. not 7 o'clock.
If you show up at 7 o'clock, you'll see the last 30 minutes, which will be great.
It will be. It will be.
So 6:30 Central Time. Thank you, Sam. Sorry about that.
Nope.
And how you sign up for the study, again, You can sign up for the study. You can get all of the resources by just going to awfreconciling.com. And we'd love to have you as part of the study in October to be with us. I also see a question. Is this resource best for congregations thinking about reconciling or for congregations with a long history of being reconciling? Obviously, we are the Reconciling Ministries team of Alabama West Florida. So we are fully committed to the mission and purpose of Reconciling Ministries. And we do, as I said, hope and dream for a more inclusive future. However, what this study honestly is more designed for is people who want to stay United Methodist. Doesn't mean that we're trying to make them begin the process, and it is a wonderful formative process that Reconciling Ministries has of becoming a reconciling congregation. That's not were y'all hearing me, or did I just mute myself? Okay, you were not hearing me?
Yes, we were.
Okay, good, because it was amazing. This was not designed to help you in the process of becoming reconciling or reinforcing it. However, obviously, Reconciling Ministries is supportive of the United Methodist Church. And so, and again, we make no bones about it, as Sam says, that we hope and pray for a more inclusive and just church intersectionally. So does that clarify that?
Thank you all for your answers on that. Got another question for you all. What are some of the things that aren't true that you're hearing that you wanted to create this study to counter?
One of the things that we have in here that is so important, and one of the most false narratives, is the part about doctrines. And you notice that was part of what was in the short clip that Sam had. I have it in mind. I think also in the third session it talks about it. People are quick to say that everything is changing in the United Methodist Church, if, you know, in the post-separation, as they like to call it, or continuing United Methodist Church, but the doctrines are not changing. Our creeds are not changing. The core of who we are as United Methodist are not changing. Another thing that, frankly, I would like to happen, but it's not fair to say it will happen, is that immediately the church will become inclusive and will become, as I had it said to me just yesterday, a quote unquote gay church. You know, that is dog whistles, that is unfair, that is not accurate. You know, absolutely, we hope and pray for a more inclusive church, those of us who are part of this team.
It's
but we cannot say that it will unequivocally, and they should not say it. Let's stick with the facts, and that's what we tried to do.
Yeah, from time immemorial, the threat has always been from the early 20th century and Boston personalism and everything else, is that, oh, the church is going down the doctrinal drain, you know, and it's just not true. It just isn't true. And you know what we are working for is a church is an embrace of more people for whom that doctrine and the liturgy implied by it involves, right? You know, that's what we want to do. We don't want to change the doctrine. We want to change the number of people who can love it and be served by it and learn about God through it, and, you know, aren't excluded by it. Sorry, I'm a preacher. Sometimes I just go off. I just pop off.
Awesome. Thank you for your answers on it. Oh, Diana, let's unmute you so you can ask a question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for letting us learn about this resource. So I'm in Texas. It's not a lot unlike Alabama, just bigger. And so there's the speculation in our conferences. We have some churches that will go GMC and many that will stay United Methodist, but there's probably not one church that's I'm in a large metropolitan area. There's not too many churches in our area that all of the congregants will follow the direction that the church goes. So we envision this great shuffling. So there are people in my local congregation all over the board, and we have a couple of reconciling groups. But is this a study that people that are not yet allies, but are committed United Methodists could do together? I've read that, you know, you worked very hard to use non-dualistic or language, and I believe that. I know some of you, and so just trying to get a feel for your thoughts. I have not looked at it at the resource enough.
In the SEJ and the SCJ, there is a lot of you know, common feelings there. There are, you know, and the United Methodist Church has a lot of different groups within it. But there's a whole lot of United Methodists in the SCJ and SCJ. There's a lot of people. And I think that there are plenty of people who are, and I think it will only grow over the course of the next couple of years, that we worked very hard to advocate for a church for all God's people. You don't have to agree, you know, with the full inclusion of LGBTQIA plus people in order to be United Methodist, right? I mean, we hope that the policies of the church will change, but we really worked hard to make this a study that would not smack somebody up at that side, that smack of propaganda. Let me put it that way. That it was just as even-handed and as transparent as we could make it. Now, some people are going to look at our position statement and go, "Boop, not for me." But I think that there are a lot of people in the center that would be willing, that I think they would greatly benefit from it. What do you think, Pat?
Well, and let me just add to that. Our position statement is to make it as clear as possible where our biases may be. However, it is not what we have put together in terms of the way that we are presenting it. We've tried to be honest not only in terms of our presentation of the material, but also in terms of who we are. So if someone hears a bias, they go, well, of course they did. They're for inclusion. Well, okay. At least we didn't hide it. So I think that honestly, Diana, any United Methodist would find this study helpful if they are leaning towards the United Methodist Church, or solidly, as I am, a cradle United Methodist who has been born and raised and loves this church, even with its imperfections and how much it's hurt me. And one thing I just want to encourage you, because I know we're running short on time, is, as John Wesley would say, just begin. You know, the WCA and others, or as I like to call them, the other church, don't even give them credit. They are doing so much. They're putting flyers in our pews. They're doing meetings in our churches to try to encourage people to leave. Meanwhile, most of us are doing very little to counter their narrative, to tell a truer story of what's happening. And I think a lot of people are going to be very distressed if they end up in a WCA or GMC or other church and realize just how different it is from our church, the United Methodist Church, as imperfect as it is. It's got so much good. One of the things that just brought me to tears this week, which those of you who know me know that's not that big of a deal, is after the hurricane in Louisiana, our conference quickly wrote a check for $100,000 and sent it to the Louisiana conference. And while we might have some churches, if we were all independent, that would send 2 here and 3 here, to be able to write a check from one conference to the other when the other is in need, that's our connection at its best. That's the impact we have. We make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. And for that, I am willing to continue this fight and to do all I can for the United Methodist Church to be the best it can be and to be better than it is. So I hope all of you will join in this and do something. Because otherwise, honestly, at least in conferences like ours, we're getting killed.
Pat, thank you for sharing. Looks like Sam wants to say one more word.
Yeah, there was a question earlier in the chat about translations. Pat, do you want to talk about that? Is it going to be translated into other languages?
Into Spanish, I noted.
That's fairly easy to do. What we need is someone to, you can do Google Translate and we can take care of that. But what is helpful is to have a Spanish speaking, reading person to double check it. And so we would love to do that. If you happen to know someone who would be willing to double check it, we would be happy to translate it in any language.
Thank you. You all have been so gracious with your time and in answering these questions and sharing about this resource. We hope that it really has been an informative time for all of you who joined us. Maybe you've received a bit of encouragement, maybe a little nudge here or there. I do hope that this might be helpful to many of you who are just wanting to open a door, even if it's just a little crack. This might be a resource to help you be in conversation with your friends and neighbors at your church and otherwise, maybe even with a spouse in your own home. There's a lot of different people that we desire to be in communion and conversation with, and sometimes we need something to help us do that. And I think this resource is a tool that could help open up conversation. So again, Pat, Kathy, and Sam, thank you so much for just sharing a bit about your experience and your encounter and the motivation behind this resource. They have given you the web address that's going to answer a lot more questions. You'll find their contact information there. So if you want to follow up with any of them, they've shown an openness to just being available and being a resource themselves as they make this video and study series available for all of us. So thank you all for being here this evening again and for sharing this time. We are grateful for this connection and for this virtual porch to draw us together. I hope you feel like you've hung out with some friends for a little bit. Maybe you need to go get a little, in the southern way of things, get some sweet tea or maybe a little peach cobbler and finish up your evening. Sorry, we couldn't provide that. But we are just so thankful for this space and for the work that you do in your individual churches and in your Sunday school classes. Thank you for the times that you're able to be bold and to share with others what you think and feel. May you be blessed as you go forth this evening. Go with God's peace upon all of you. Thanks for being here. Bye, everybody.
Hey, Emily?
Yes.
One quick question that I don't see the leader's guide. The leader's guide, you'll see the link to it in the participant guide, okay? So I hope that person is still on that asked that question, but that's where you can find the leader's guide. So thanks, everybody.
Thank everybody.